So welcome back guys in the flight deck, where we are now proceeding with the startup of the Saab 340. In case you have missed it, there's also a part 1 of this video where I set up the airplane, making it ready for departure. Right now the doors are closed, the GPS is loaded, everything is set, so we just have to start up the engines and go. We are still on external power. Now, if you can see from the outside, that's the GPU standing below the right-hand engine. But there's one thing that's very different in this airplane from your average Airbus or Boeing airplane, and that is that this plane doesn't seem to have a APU. So we have to start up engine number 1 first, set the generator for engine number 1 to the buses to provide electricity to the airplane. Then we can disconnect the ground power unit, then it's pushback, and then we'll start up engine number 2. So let's start with starting engine number 1. Now, in order to start the engine, first thing you have to do is move the condition lever, which is down there, and place that from the fuel off into the start position. So hover your mouse over it or assign an axis to it and set it to start. So that's now done. Then you go to the engine panel in here, move the ignition switch to continuous, and then you draw the start switch to the left. And as you can see on the outside perspective, the startup of the engine is very nicely animated. But we'll just have to take good care for the gauges in here, and we have to verify that none of the needles moves out of the green zone into the yellow or even the red zone. So here we are. And engine number 1 is now stabilized, so let's switch the generator on, and you do that by setting it to reset, then releasing it. It will flip back to the on position, and do that twice. Then you switch off the external power. And you can also do the engine bleed already. And with the generator from engine number 1 now providing electricity to the airplane, we can dismiss the ground power units. And what I should have done already was remove the chocks and the parking cones. And what we have to do right now is call in the pushback truck. Now, I did have some issues on a previous flight with this when I wanted to push back in a circle. It didn't work that well, so I just do a straight back pushback and then we'll taxi out from there. So this is perfect, so just accept this plan.
Ground to cockpit. Plan acknowledged. Call me through the menu when you're ready.
So let's just call them in right now.
Ground to cockpit. Tow is driving up.
So we'll just have to wait for the pushback right now. And that gives me a little bit of time to explain something else to you. As you can see here on the nav display, we have now in red letters telling us log 1 and VOR2. And that means that the source for the navigation is localized, or nav radio 1 and nav radio 2. After takeoff, we will first fly the runway heading, so we'll fly in heading mode, but after that we want to go to the GPS. So you have to select the GPS as the source.
Okay, all doors and hatches are closed, ready to connect.
As the source for your navigation, and you do that with this knob, so just press your left mouse button and move that until you see it change from there it is, to left.
Winching strap and adapter in position. Release parking brake when ready to start pushback.
To Lima Romeo November 1. This is the correct one. If when we are flying and we switch on the autopilot and we select nav, that will have the autopilot follow the GPS. So anyway, he was ready, so let's just release the parking brake now. Now we will lift off the nose of the airplane.
Starting pushback.
And here we go, starting pushback. So what we'll do now is we'll set the condition lever for engine number 2 also to the start position. We'll select the number 1 igniter can go back to norm, and we'll set the right igniter to continuous. And we'll switch the starter to the right. To start up engine number 2, let's verify that none of the needles move out of the green. This is now stabilizing nicely, so back to the overhead panel, set the generator for number 2 engine as well. Reset,
Operation
reset,
complete.
and then it will
Parking brake.
switch to the buses any second now. So let's just set the parking brake here. Parking brake set.
Disconnecting tow, stand by.
The generators are online. Let's set the bleed valve, reset that one, that's good now. We can switch on the standby pido heat, set the window heats to norm. And let's set the propeller and engine heats on as well. The main inverter goes on. And let's just...
L.E.S disconnected and bypass pin has been removed. Hand signal on the left. We'll see you next time and have a safe flight.
Thanks for your help. See you next time. Bye-bye. And right now... we are ready to read our after engine start checklist. And the clear signal is now received, so we can check that one already. Now the auto Carson is positioned on the overhead. Switch that to on. And what it does, let me just read it because I'm not familiar enough to spell it out from memory. The auto Carson system is installed to achieve a fast reduction in windmilling drag during takeoff, approach and go around in case of an engine failure. The system also responds to temporary engine malfunctions such as momentary fuel or airflow interruption. The system continues to monitor engine parameters after an auto Carson, and it uncoarsons the propeller when any engine parameter increases above the threshold value. So that's a very important system in case of engine failures. And the bus tie is down there. It's on auto, that's good. The external power is off. The generators are checked. Air conditioning. Let's set the recirculation fans on. The rest is on auto, that's fine. Check that the emergency lights are armed. Set the fuel use. Reset. And the condition levers, we will move them to max in a minute. I will first set them to minimum. Now, by the way, the condition levers, you have two sort of symbols. You have the open hand, that will move one condition lever, the one that your mouse is hovering over. But if you have this with the up and down arrow, it will move both the condition levers at the same time. So let's just go to the unfeathered, to the minimum position. can see it's not completely free of bugs just yet. And now set it over to max. Something is still wrong here with the condition levers. When they are in max and you are on the ground, you should still be able to use between ground idle and flight idle on your power levers. So that's not correct yet. But let's hope that that's fixed in the next update as well. Ice protection was already set, overhead panel is checked, and the EVIS is checked as well. So after engine start, checklist is completed. Having done all that, set flaps to 7, do a quick flight controls check. Full left, full right, neutral, down, up, neutral, and the rudder full left, full right, neutral. So having done that, we can now start to taxi, but first we have to set the nose wheel steering, and that's this knob down here. Make sure that that's down, then release the parking brake. And now we are good to go, and we are able to steer the plane on the ground. Increase the power a little bit to increase the ground speed, which is displayed here on the GPS. And now we can make the left-hand turn to start taxiing towards runway 27. And of course the first thing to always check while taxiing is the brakes, so let's do a brake test right now. Brakes are checked. So let's run the checklist here, taxi checks. Brakes are checked, altimeters 3003 is set and cross-checked, flaps 7 is set. Instruments and radios are checked, performance tests, they are not modeled, so we cannot run those tests. We have to set the CTOT, which is the constant torque on takeoff system. So just arm it and add in a value. You can look it up in the manuals what the exact setting should be. And the departure briefing is completed. Now the CTOT, that is described as a system is used during takeoff and go around only. CTOT trims the engine power to a selected torque value above the power lever position, thereby eliminating the need for the pilot to adjust the power setting. So also a very important system to arm during takeoff and landings. And here we are taxiing towards runway 27 right now. So with the taxi checklist completed, it's time to call in the before takeoff checklist already, which will just be setting the boxes until we are at taxiway Alpha, which is down there. So here we have to turn to the right onto taxiway Alpha, and once we are on Alpha we will start with the before takeoff checklist, because it's a short runway, it's a short taxiway. We'll be at the end of the runway in no time. So let's set the landing lights on. Oh, the taxi lights should have been on already. They're set. The air conditioning is set. The transponder, that has to be set on now. Flight controls were already checked. The warning panel, that's clear. And we have to push the takeoff inhibit, that's down there. So that's checked, and well, the takeoff signal is not yet given, so let's just leave that unchecked for now. So switch on the strobe lights, and we are clear to line up runway 27. Let's say the takeoff signal is now given. So line up, and then we are on our way to Amsterdam. And I now see that the heading bug is to the east. That's wrong, because we should be going to the west. But there's an easy trick for that. I will show you that in a minute. Just line up on the runway first. Oh, by the way, if you want to hide the yoke,
27.
you can just press this screw here for the captain's side and this one for the first officer. I like to have them visible, so because they're not in the sight of other instruments. So here we are lining up, runway 27.
On runway 27.
Check, runway 27. And here we are. Now if you press the heading slave button here, it will set the heading bug instantly to the current heading of the airplane. So we're good now. We'll select heading in here. And we start our takeoff roll. So here we go. And 80 knots. V1. Rotates. Positive rates. Gear up. Flaps up. Select climb. And engage the autopilot. You do that by pressing in here and keep it pressed for a couple of seconds. So the flaps are up. And with the speed at 180 knots, we are now climbing out to the selected cruise altitude of 190. And we are now passing 2,000 feet. So let's make a right-hand turn now to start intercepting the route to the Bal waypoint. Heading east. Taxi light can be switched off. And let's run the climb checklist right now. So the gear and flaps, they are up. Ice protection is set. Auto coarsen off. External lights are set. Cabin signs, well, let's remain them in their seat. Let's leave the passengers in the seat belts for now. There's a little bit of turbulence. Air conditioning is set. Takeoff inhibit is out. Cabin pressure is moving up. Automatic as it should. Switch the prop sync on. And make sure that the CTOT is off. Which it is. And we are now passing, no not yet, we are almost passing through 5,000 feet. And once we do, we'll set the altimeters to 29902, the standard. right now, 29902. Altimeter standard climb checklist completed. Now the prop sync, that's quite important. That synchronizes the movement of the propellers, etc. And makes sure that the engines are equal. And that reduces noise and increases passenger comfort throughout the flight. So quite important to set that quite soon after takeoff. And now we are on an intercept heading for the flight plan to De Bal. We will see this needle moving in, and once this is one straight arrow, we are on the track. So what we will do, once we are getting closer, is switch from heading to nav mode, and then the airplane will make a left-hand turn to intercept that course. Let's do that right now. So here we are. On track for De Bal. 40 miles away, we should be there in about 11 minutes, a bit shorter. As the speed is still increasing. Now what we also have to do is set the prop RPM, that's too high right now. So let's reduce the condition levers until we reach about 1330 RPM in here. So that is between this and this block. There we are. And I also want to reduce the power lever slightly, because we are quite high in the engine RPM. And that is causing the temperature to rise. So let's just reduce it slightly. And once you have a setting that you're satisfied with, you can lock the power levers by switching this lock here. This will add friction, which prevents the power levers from being moved at the slightest touch. So this is quite alright. We have now passed 10,000 feet, so landing lights off. And the airplane looks stable, so let's switch off the seatbelt signs now. We have 9.5 minutes to go and approximately 9,000 feet to, well, 8,500 feet to climb. So what I will do is I switch this back to indicated airspeed mode and dial back the airspeed slightly to increase the rate of climb. Because we want to be at flight level 190 when we reach De Bal. Press the heading slave again. So here we are, coasting out over the UK. The photo scenery tiles, zonephoto.x-plane.fr, clouds, SkyMax Pro v4.6, and of course the leading edge simulation Saab 340. Wonderful little airplane. Now Now with the indicated airspeed mode, the airplane will constantly fly 160 knots. So if you add power, then the surplus of the power will be used to climb. If you use indicated airspeed mode, you can also use that to descend. Just close your thrust levers, set an altitude in here, and the airplane wants to keep the speed. So if you close your thrust levers, or your power levers I must say, then of course the speed will decrease, and once it gets below the set speed, the nose will tilt forward to gain speed, and of course by doing so the airplane will descend. So quite similar to the system in the 727 and the old 737 V2s. We should be alright in reaching 190 prior to the ball, as long as we stick to about 1000 feet per minute rate of climb. Because we're now at 14,000 feet, we have 6 minutes to go, almost 7. And it's just 5,000 feet. So if we stick to 1000 feet per minute, we should be at 190 in 5 minutes. 2 minutes prior to reaching the waypoint. That should be perfect. As you can see right now, the higher we go, the more problem the airplane has in keeping the speed, and that will be translated in a constantly decreasing rate of climb. So what I'm gonna do now is reduce the speed a bit further to 150 knots ish. So the plane can climb a bit faster, losing some speed. And with 3,500 feet to go, and 5.5 minutes of flying time, we should definitely be good. Still no warnings on the overhead. Let's just check the fuel temperature. 7 degrees, that's alright. No warnings on the warning panel. Now down to 900 feet per minute. So let's reduce the speed a bit further to 140. Let's check the engine instruments. 50% torque. Temperature 856, still in the green. The engine RPM also nice in the green. Prop RPM about 1330 as it should. All the needles nice in the green. And we have a even fuel consumption on both sides of the airplane. Everything looks good in here. And that warning sound, of course, was the altitude alert. We are now less than 1,000 feet from our target altitude. And we are still 9 miles away from the ball, so we're gonna make that easily. So the alt select is now coming up, 19,000 feet, vertical speeds reducing to 0. So let's adjust the speed bug to about, well, 200. Let's say 220. So we'll basically just leave the power levers where they are, and we'll just let the speed rise for now. I expect a landing runway 27. So we're coming in from Suchel. We should be at 7,000 feet over Sierra Papa Lima VOR, and then continue to descend to 2,000 feet while we are flying towards Echo Hotel 804, which is down there. Then we'll make a left-hand turn to intercept and establish the ILS runway 27 at Echo Hotel 615. The localizer or the ILS frequency is 111.55 and the course is 267. So 11155 is already dialed in, and 1084 is the Sierra Papa Lima VOR. That's also dialed in and identified. Sierra Papa Lima VOR at 89 miles away now. Ground speed is 253 knots. In 10 seconds we will make a right to track 101. 2-1 now. And right now the airplane does start to make that turn to heading 101. Or track 101 to Bukut. Let's just grab some performance charts again. See if we can get some flaps settings, some speeds for the approach. Still all takeoff. Here we are, approach flaps 20. It's just the landing weight limits, landing length. Check with the airplane again. Still going strong. We are now flying from Bukut to Lamso. And we have to step into action at Suchol, because then we have to make a direct to Delta 2920 to activate the approach. So for now we are still okay. Speed is good. So let me just continue to look for some approach performance plates. This is still all climb performance. Descent planning table. Speeds. These are single engine speeds. Maybe it was in the beginning of this document, let's just see. Let's takeoff power. Here we have some important speeds for the flaps. Maximum speed for flap 7 is 175 and the max speed for flaps 35 is 140 knots. Landing and approach speeds. The gross weights. So we have a reference speed of 103 knots. Check back in the flight deck now, because we are now heading for Bepel. Now we should be at 10,000 feet at Suchol, so it's about time to start our descent now. So what you do is you wind down the altitude to 10,000 and then you select indicated airspeed holds, release the power levers and just close them back to flight idle. Now at flight idle the speed wants to drop, and to compensate that the airplane will start to descend, maintaining the speed set by the speed buck. So we should be at 10,000 feet at Suchol, or approximately 10,000 feet. guess this is about it, what we can get for the landing speed. So we have the R regulations in Europe. So we are gross weight below 23,000. So we have a VREF 35 of 103 knots. Just lower flaps 35 below 140 knots. So here we are. Now inbound Zugel, 4 minutes away. Still 5,000 feet to lose. So let's put the passengers back in their seats. Still need to get used to the speeds with this airplane. Of course, the turboprop is always much slower than a jetliner, but I'm not very convenient now with what the correct speed settings are in the various phases of flight. For instance, I don't have a clue whether I'm going too slow or just about right or too fast in this stage of flight. So if you happen to see this and you happen to know, please let me know in the comment section what the correct speeds are for, let's say, climb, descent, cruise, just to get a feel with that. Because I still I don't have that yet with this airplane. 2.5 minutes to go, 2,000 feet to lose. We should be alright with this rate of descent. Should reach Zugel at 10,000 feet easily. And like I said, when we reach Zugel, we need to select the direct to Delta 2920. You do that by going to your flight plan, then walk the green box to this one, and then press this button. That's the direct to switch. But for now we still have 1.5 minutes to go before we reach Zugel. And less than 1,000 feet, so we are alright. Doing fine here. And let's start to increase some power, because the airplane will level off in a few seconds now. And we want to keep our forward speed. So let's keep them at well, minimum takeoff should be alright, maybe a little less, 62 degrees. It's a bit too less. Let's set it to a minimum takeoff just for now. 45 seconds to reach Zugel. 27, 26, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. In 13 seconds it will start its turn, so we'll just switch to the direct to Delta 2920 right now, activate, and there it goes, direct to Delta 2920. And now we have to continue our descent to 7,000 feet, because we need to be at 7,000 feet over Sierra Papa Lima. So back to indicated airspeed hold and back on the power levers again to flight idle. And let's run the descent checklist now. Approach briefing, that has to be done. Ice protection is set, cabin pressure still auto and working. Flight instruments and radios, they are set and checked. And let's go to the CTOT. That's armed. Now the briefing, it's going to be an ILS approach runway 27. Let's just check the wind to make absolutely sure that that's going to be it. 2809 knots, so definitely a runway 27 approach on a QNH of 1016. Captain will do all the flying. Expect the normal procedure from Schiphol via Sierra Papa Lima, Echo Hotel 804, then the turn ILS approach. In case of a go around, we'll continue on runway heading, climb 3,000 feet, and then we'll get ATC instructions that will tell us what to do. With the runway 24 being in use for takeoff and 27 for landing, we expect a right-hand turn to line up again runway 27 and try it again. In case of an extreme emergency, we have to keep in mind that runway 18 right is closed and not available for any sort of landing, including emergency landings. So in a worst case scenario, we will make a right-hand turn heading north and then south again and try to make an emergency landing on 18 center. Given the 9-knot winds, that shouldn't be too much of a problem. But preferred runway is and remains runway 27. And here we are at 7,000 feet, so increase the thrust again, or the power. Briefing is completed. Let's increase some speed again. And that's something you have to get used to with this airplane. It doesn't have an auto throttle, so you can't set a speed and forget about it. You always have to keep your eyes on your speed indicator. Because losing track of your speed in an airplane is extremely dangerous. You just need speed to stay in the air. So let's just leave them at about 63 degrees. And in 45 seconds we will be reaching Delta 2920, and then it's on to Sierra Papa Lima VOR. A lot of turbulence in here. We have a 12-knot tailwind. And right now we are switching to Sierra Papa Lima. Also on track 110. And we should be over Amsterdam Airport in 4 minutes. It's quite a heavy cloud in front of us. Unfortunately, we don't have a weather radar, so we can't really look in how active it is. But usually, I think it's wise to fly around cloud formations like that. And given the amount of turbulence, I think the autopilot agrees with me. But let's just continue. 3 minutes before we reach Sherpa-Lima. And as soon as we are over Sherpa-Lima, we have to reset the altitude to 2,000 feet, start to descend. And what I will do, once we are making this turn to Echo Hotel 615, I will switch it back to heading mode. And we'll select the nav radio as the source for the navigation. So that we have the ILS set up correctly to intercept. We are now coasting in. This is IJmuiden. And we are flying over Zandvoort. This is the racetrack. It used to be a Formula 1 track. It isn't since a couple of years. There are some plans of maybe bringing that back. This is Zandvoort and this is the town of Haarlem with Bloemendaal. And this is Hoofddorp with Nieuw-Vennep and the airport down there below the clouds. Again, photo scenery, zonephoto.x-plane.fr. And the clouds, SkyMax Pro V4.6. Let's just get back to the flight deck, see if everything is still going as it should. It is 1.5 minutes to go. We have to continue our descent in 1 minute. Okay, 20 seconds. So let's just dial down this one to 2,000 feet. And here we go. So indicated airspeed mode, power levers to flight idle. This will continue the descent to 2,000 feet. Let's set the correct altimeters. One 1016. Which is 3000. And here we have the city of Amsterdam with the famous canals with A. That's the airport, Amsterdam Forest. This is Amstelveen. This is the A10 highway with the Free University Hospital. Then this is the border between Amsterdam and Amstelveen. Uilenstede student housing area. Middenpolder, Oude Kerk aan de Amstel. This is the A9 highway with the A2 running there. Amsterdam Arena or Johan Cruyff Arena. And the A9, de Gaasperdammerweg through the Bijlmermeer. Let's just focus now on the airplane because things are going fast right now. We are 1 minute away from Echo Hotel 804. From there I will put the airplane back in heading mode. Okay, so this is a good time to switch to heading mode and select the nav radio, which is log 1. It's still on 269 for the course, so that's alright. And let's now make a left turn to intercept the ILS. Let's head north first. We have to keep in mind that once we reach 2000 feet we have to increase the power again to maintain speed. So heading north now. That's okay. Let's arm the approach mode. And now we have to start to increase some power. We also have to set the condition levers to max. With a speed of about 180, that's fine. And let's call in the approach checklist. So altimeter set, external lights. Oh, we forgot to switch on the landing lights. Is set, cabin signs on, HP valve set. Approach checklist completed. Let's now make a left turn to intercept the localizer. Speed 180, that's looking good. Localizer's alive. Approach mode still armed. .7 miles out. Localizer captured. Here we are. Slightly reduced power. Let's reduce speed to 160 knots. Set flaps 7. And let's reduce further to 140. Glide slope is alive. Flaps 15, set. Gear down. Glide slope is captured. Reduce speed further to about 120. Okay, set missed approach altitude 3000 feet. Flaps. Okay, and set flaps full. L.E.S established. Let's run the landing checks. Autocarson on. Landing signal given. Gear is down, locked 3 green. Hydraulics checked. Prop sync off. Condition levers max. Flaps set. De-ice boots off. Yaw damper off. Landing checklist completed. Oh, we are stalling again. Oh crap. Completely lost track of my speed again. Now with the autopilot disconnect, just push the red button on the yoke. That will silence the autopilot disconnect alarm. So let's retrim the airplane and turn to the right now to re-establish on the localizer.
Wide slope, wide slope, wide slope, wide slope, wide slope, wide slope,
Yes,
wide
yes.
slope, wide slope.
Shut up. Alright, here we go. Okay, so here we go. Re-establishing on the L.E.S.
Approaching 27.
Check 27. Now we're slightly low. And back on the localizer. Still slightly low. And that crosswind coming from the right is really destroying my approach here. But that's the fun thing. So here we go. A little bit of speed, a little bit of power added. And here we are. Runway 27 coming up. And straighten it with the runway. Flare. Reverse, manual braking. So here we go, vacate the runway. So again, activate the nose wheel steering. and just vacate the runway, nice and easy. So here we are, Amsterdam, vacating runway 27. Let's just have a quick look at that landing from the outside perspective. Flared a bit too soon here. Not a bit, I flared too soon. And here we are in Amsterdam. So let's just retract the flaps here. Set the transponder back to standby. Landing lights off, strobe lights off. And let's run the, oh, let's switch off the anti-ice, by the way. And do the after landing checklists. So gust lock on, well, it is in here, but I can't seem to get it to work. So the ice protection is off, auto Carson, that's off as well. External lights, landing lights off, strobe lights off, beacon and nav lights and taxi lights are on, so that's set. HP valves closed, differential pressure checked, flaps are up. And the transponder is on standby. So after landing checklist completed. And let's taxi to the Bravo apron. Because that's the apron where KLM Cityhopper always starts and ends its flights. Just took the wrong taxiway, so let's just move over to the correct taxiway in here. So we landed runway 27, we vacated, we've taxied here, we now just moved over to this one. So on taxiway Alpha we will follow that until we are just past the Bravo pier, move up here, and then find ourselves a stand on the Bravo apron. Let's just move the power levers back to the minimum position. While we taxi past the Delta gates, or gate Delta that is. By the way, Aerosofts Amsterdam, still hoping that they will one day release an Amsterdam V2, just as they did with Frankfurt. That would be awesome, to have a rendition of Amsterdam Airport that makes good use of all the extras that X-Plane 11 has to offer. So right turn here. Charlie to Bravo down there, and then it's a right hand turn. But this is Charlie, that's Bravo, and then behind that we have to make the turn to the apron. But to already sum up some conclusions, this is a very nice detailed study level add-on for X-Plane 11. For me it's now one of my favorite airliners for regional flights, so very short haul flights. This is very nice to fly them with. There are still some bugs and issues. Some of them are known to the developers and are set to be corrected in the next update that is to be released. Just don't know when they will release that just yet, but I'm not a developer. Anyway, I think the in-depth of the systems, the documentation that ships along with it, the handling, it flies really nice on manual control. Well, just as long as they, I think that when they solve the issues with the display of the nav radio and the GPS on some systems, and there's a little bit of an issue with the throttle levers, because it's still not the behavior that you should expect. On the ground you should be able to operate the power levers between ground idle and the red bar here without any problems. So there's some work to be done with that. Let's hope that they fix that, and then this is one heck of an add-on. It already is, but when there are no flaws anymore, it's going to be terrific. I can wholeheartedly advise you to buy this. You just have to realize that this is an airplane without an auto throttle, so you have to be on top of it all the time. If you don't like that, then this might not be the plane for you. But if you think that that's fun and challenging, then go for it. This plane is well worth the money. And you can get it over at xaviation.com. So let's just increase some power again. And let's just park next to that one. And we now reach the stand, so switch off the taxi light already. here we are. So let's set the condition levers back to the start position. Ground idle for the power levers. Set the parking brake. Close the oxygen. And now we can switch off engine number 2 first. And connect the ground power unit. And switch on the external power. Shut down engine number 1. We switch off the beacon lights. The nav lights remain on because we have external power and therefore electricity in the airplane. So seatbelt signs off. Parking checks, parking brakes set, engine anti-ice is off. External lights set, avionics can remain on, generators off. Seatbelt sign is off, air conditioning is still set, emergency lights off. Oxygen is off, the batteries can remain on, and the dome light is as it should. So that's the parking checklist completed. So let's just open the door again to release the passengers, and that will be the end of the flight and thus our video. So I already start by saying thank you for watching. I hope you liked it. If you have any tips, tricks, comments whatsoever, please leave them in the comment section below. As usual, please do so in a respectful manner. We are all here to learn. And I'm not a professional pilot, so there's a lot for me to learn as well. Thank you for all the likes and subscribes to the channel. That's really appreciated. I don't make any money out of my YouTube account. It's just pure for fun. And it's always nice if well, someone recognizes that with the like or subscribe. So thanks everyone for watching. Hope you liked the video. And I hope to see you some other time on another video in the future. So thank you for watching and bye bye.